So a few weeks ago, I made a video called Start That Thing. And this was just a short and sweet video to help anyone who is trying to go for something but struggling with a little bit of motivation. However, sometimes if you've been going for your goals or you've been trying to go for something for a while, it's often as important, if not more important, to know when to quit. So welcome to the sequel, Quit That Thing. Hi, my name's Vashi and I like to talk about finances, well-being and being single. Basically, the CEO of Can't Pick a Niche. If you'd like to learn how to level up your finances, learn to love life just a little bit more and be comfortable in your singleness, then make sure to hit the subscribe button down below. Quitting. The term is usually seen as something negative or something that is a sign of weakness or sign of being cowardly in some situations. But sometimes quitting is actually the bravest thing you can do in a situation, and not many people actually have the courage to do it. How many times have you considered quitting something that just wasn't for you anymore? Could be a job, a relationship, university degree. And how many times have you actually quit that thing? The reality is, many of us, deep down, will know when something is right for us, but we'll often stay in a situation that we know we're not meant to be in due to how we think we'll be perceived by others, the fear of the unknown, or just the wrong mindset, like, I'm too old to quit now. Sound familiar? Well, worry not. In this video, I'll share with you a quitting framework that you can use to help you decide whether to quit something altogether or maybe just persevere just a little bit longer. I've quit so many things in life and honestly, I can't recommend it enough. Each time I've quit, my life has been better as a result. Let me share a real life example with you here. All of my academic life, I was studying sciences, gearing up to become a doctor. Shock horror, I know. I tried that, it didn't work out, so I pursued the next best thing at the time, which was pharmacy. In order to become a pharmacist, I did 4 years of training at a university, got my master's in that time, then I did a training year in a hospital, and then at the end of all of that, I ended up getting a job as a resident pharmacist in a really good hospital in London. Literally everything in this situation was perfect on paper, but I absolutely hated it. Forget the Sunday night scaries, I had the Monday night scaries, Tuesday night, Wednesday night, Thursday night. Basically all night I was absolutely petrified and didn't want to go to work. The thing is, I'm an inherently artsy person and deep down I've always known that I've wanted to pursue something creative for my career, and being a pharmacist definitely isn't aligned to this. So there I was, a fully qualified pharmacist, and to me, I had two obvious choices in mind at that point in time. Option one, stick with the job. It was well paid and it's a job that I could have potentially kept for the rest of my life and be comfortable and not really have to worry about any other thing, but be miserable for the rest of my life and always have a what if in the back of my mind. Or option two, which is quit the job, go into the unknown, have no plan of what my life could look like, but have a chance at potentially finding something that will make me happy. And even though option two would have set me back in my career in the short term, it was a no-brainer for me to choose this option as the long-term payoff was so much greater. I did have friends and family give me the chat of, you spend all this time and money training as a pharmacist, you can't quit now. But here's how I see it. And YouTube tells me that most of you that watch my videos are round about the similar age as me, so I'm going to represent it visually for you, so you can see exactly how silly this mentality is. So when I was at this crossroads, I was around 24 or 25 at that time, and if that age was too late to quit now or too late to change my career now, you can actually see how ridiculous that mentality is when you consider the entirety of your working career. Even if I had gone back to school to retrain for an entirely different career, it would still be worth it in the long term. And what is too old anyway? We really need to stop writing ourselves off from a career perspective or, from a relationship perspective, because best believe you will catch me at 40 changing my career once again. And if you're curious about where that decision took me and where I ended up and where I am now, well, I mean, it wasn't a linear journey or a straight process, but I'm now in what I'd consider my dream role, for now that is, which is designing financial education content for vulnerable people. And the thing is, of course I was going to get here, because once you take that first step in moving towards something that is aligned to you, everything else just falls in place. And because you have that courage to make that first step, you're definitely going to have the courage to do all the other things that you need to do to get you where you want to be. And you know, I've left out all the tiny nuances and details in this process. It definitely wasn't easy for me. I recognize there are a number of things that you need to consider before you do actually walk away from something like a job or a relationship. And a lot of these things are over and above your needs and what you want. But hopefully this framework that I'm going to share with you now will give you a little bit more clarity on whether quitting is the right thing to do, or whether perhaps you might need to persevere a little bit longer in this thing. And so this framework is called the Quitting Framework. And full transparency, it's not something that I created. I discovered it in this book called Happy Sexy Millionaire by Stephen Bartlett. And I definitely recommend you read it. It's a super easy read and I got a lot out of this book. So let's go through it. Let's start at the why. Why are you quitting? Are you quitting because it sucks? Or are you quitting because it's hard? So you're considering quitting this thing because it's hard. Okay, but is the challenge associated with this thing worth the potential reward? If yes, then stick at it a little bit longer. And if no, then quit. And I guess an example that immediately springs to mind in this situation is a fitness goal or something health related. We often find these things hard and challenging, but more often than not, and pretty much always, the reward is always going to outweigh the challenge, and therefore you should stick with it. Okay, so now let's go right back up to the top of the framework, and you're considering quitting something because it sucks. Okay, well, could you make it not suck? If the answer is no, then quit that thing. If the answer is yes, consider whether the effort to make it not suck is actually worth it. If yes, then stick with that thing a little bit longer. If no, then girl, bye. And something that springs to mind here is a friendship or a relationship. You know, sometimes these things are salvageable. It can be so beautiful with a little bit of effort from both parties. But sometimes the effort really isn't worth the heartache and the stress that it's going to give you. And so therefore, it's time to just let it go. And you know, by all means, feel free to scroll back, pause the video, go through the framework with a challenge that you have in mind. And I know this framework is super general and lacks any kind of nuance, but I'm so sure that it's going to give you that extra bit of clarity that you need on deciding whether something is or isn't for you. Why live a life of regret when you can be happy? Stephen also mentions this in the book, or I think in his podcast, I can't remember, but I'm a super fan, as you can tell. There was this piece of research conducted by a palliative care nurse called Bronnie Ware, who asked patients pretty much on their deathbed what their deepest regrets were in life. And know what the number one regret was that these patients shared. The number one thing that these patients said was, I wish I'd had the courage to live a life true to myself and not the life others expected of me. Take a minute and let that sink in. And always remember, it's better to have tried and failed than to have never tried at all.